Hey there, welcome to Module 3, our first substantive lesson. This module is all about nurture sequences, and here in Lesson 1, we're talking about the purpose of the nurture sequence, because I'm a big believer that you need to know why you're doing things to really know how to kind of structure things the right way. When you know how things should work, it is much easier to actually structure and really kind of construct your sequence in the right way. So here in Lesson 1, we're just talking about the purpose. So here in Lesson 1, you'll learn the role your nurture sequence plays in the overall email journey. Again, just a recap, we know where it sits, and we're going to go a little deeper. You're going to learn that you should think of the nurture sequence as a bridge and things to think about in creating your nurture sequence plan. So that's what we're going to cover broadly. But again, this is very much an overview. Let's get our footing. So again, let's get our footing of where the nurture sequence sits in the overall email journey for your subscribers. Now, this is the map that hopefully you're aware of now. Obviously, you've seen it at least once. And this is the concept. You go through the catch email, nurture, welcome, weekly emails, and promo sequence. In Module 2, we talked all about the catch email. The catch email, and we really kind of talked about where that fits. Your nurture sequence is a sequence of emails that you're going to send before you get to your welcome sequence, which is where you really start letting people into your world. So that's where we're sitting in the journey. Now, the nurture sequence is where you start the pivot from trust to know and like. Again, the catch email was all about building the trust factor by establishing yourself as an authoritative guide. In your catch email, you're using your voice a little bit, you're using your style, but you're not doing a ton to really let people get to know you, because it really is that first email and it's about establishing the credibility. That's what you did, and we learned in Module 2 talking about the catch email. And your welcome sequence, which we'll talk about in the next module, is about letting subscribers into your world to build the know and like factor. So in a sense, the catch is really all about the building the trust factor more than anything else. And the welcome sequence is full on know and like factor. Your nurture sequence is the bridge. This is where you continue to establish yourself as an authority while also letting your personality out a bit more than you did in the catch email. Now, in the catch email, it's a bit much to go full on with your personality and who you are. Now, you do a little bit of that with your style, but you don't really talk about yourself that much. The nurture emails is where you start to make that pivot. But caution, people don't really know you yet at this point, right? I mean, they're relatively new to your list. They've gotten one email, that catch email. So their patience will be limited at this point. So at this point, emails with a long story about you will tend to drive people away because they don't know you yet. And I don't just mean repel the wrong kinds of people. It'll even repel the right kinds of people, because they haven't yet gotten to the point that they really want anything more than a very short kind of little tidbits. So get to the point quickly and consider using analogy emails. Now, I love story emails that are stories of my life, and my nurture sequences tend still to be story emails. But this is a place where you might consider an analogy instead of a story. And what I mean by an analogy is, for example, if you were trying to talk about business and keeping business simple, you might simply use the analogy that the best businesses are like the best beers. They're simple, and there's elegance in the simplicity. And it is the ability to put things together in a very simple way that actually shows the power of what you're doing. So that would be an analogy email. So it's not so much a story about me liking a particular beer, an experience with a beer. It's just making an analogy to something I like. So I'm starting to bridge the gap, right, to help them understand things I like, but I'm using an analogy. So that is something you might want to consider here in your nurture sequence for some of the emails, just because they're really just getting warmed up. But the broader point is that no matter what you do, you want to get to the point quickly. This is not the time for an epic story or an epic tale. So the key lesson takeaway is that your nurture sequence serves as the pivot from building authority to building rapport. So in this sequence, you're doing a bit of both, and that's what you need to be thinking about as you're putting it together. So that's it for this lesson. Now, in the next lesson, we're going to talk about the two types of nurture sequences and who should use a product style nurture sequence and who should use a freebie style nurture sequence. So that's what we'll learn in the next sequence. We'll really dive into those different kinds and help you identify which one should you be using in your business and for which ones of your funnels. I'll see you in that lesson.